Good morning, everybody. Happy 2024. Welcome to Meditation and Spiritual Practice. Want to really commend all of you for starting off the new year with intention, with being here with these folks this morning. I think that making decisions to do things first, and I'll say what I mean by that is really essential to any kind of spiritual practice or regular practice. To be able to say, okay, I'm starting off the new year. What is the things that are most important? What do I want to, and what we choose to do on the first days of a secular new year or Rosh Hashanah or any of those things um, are a reflection or can be a reflection of how we hold them in our heart and what our commitment is going to be. The same thing is around our mornings. Um, in Jewish tradition, the practice is the first thing right when we wake up in the morning is to say, Moda ani lefanecha, I give thanks before you, God, to open with gratitude, to open with blessing, and to start the day with awareness, because the first thing is always the thing that we prioritize more. So if where we are in the morning is, oh, I can't do anything until I get my coffee, which I totally understand, that's also what we are saying in some core way is this is what's most important right now. Um, so just a thought of what do we want to be the first things in the day, the first things in the year, the things that we say are going to be most important. So this morning, this week, we begin the Exodus story in the Torah reading. And the Exodus story is really understood by our mystics as not just a story about something that happened in historical time, not just a external story about oppression and liberation, slavery and freedom, but really about the story of the individual and the Jewish people and who we are day to day as far as our own growth, spiritual growth, relationship to God, relationship to life. And and for those of you who will be coming on the retreat this weekend, um, yes, I will, Sergio, I will towards the end. For those of you who are coming to the retreat, that's really the theme of our retreat is journey of freedom, because each one of us are having our own life journey as far as how much freedom do we have in our own inner life, in our own life as a whole. And here, the way that our Hasidic masters especially talk about redemption, Geula, or freedom, is they talk about it as far as da'at, which is awareness. So the image of being free is one that is being awake to the alive divine presence that is within us everywhere. And slavery, Mitzrayim, Egypt, is about a constriction of da'at, or a constriction of awareness. Some of us are familiar that the word Mitzrayim for Egypt, that is the Hebrew word for Egypt, in Hebrew has the root that means narrow space, Meitzar, as in Mitzarim, narrow place. And one can say, well, why did Egypt get that Hebrew name? And it could be because of the shape of it as kind of a narrow channel of land. But certainly the way that our mystics take it is it's really talking about being in Egypt, being in Mitzrayim, is being in the narrow place, right? Is being in a space of consciousness in which we are not fully aware of the presence of ourselves. We are caught in seeing the world in a very limited way. So the whole story of Exodus that we are reading with Parshat Shemot this weekend and will go on for quite a few weekends as we have the awareness of Israelites being put into slavery, right? A new king did not know Joseph, and everything kind of clamped down. Then it goes to the burning bush and Moses awakening to his own calling and divine calling, and then everything that goes for the liberation of the people Israel from Egypt with the plagues and the Passover story. Everything we know, that whole narrative is all about the process of awakening, of freedom happening through an awakening in our mind. And so that's how the mystics read this story, and that's how we can read this. And what's interesting, as we know, it's not a one-time thing, right? Even though the story is kind of an event that happened locally in time, the way that we practice it as in Jewish tradition is it infiltrates the story every single day of our lives if we engage in Jewish practice. Many of us are familiar, we do a deep dive on this story once a year on Passover, right? But if we look at all of our blessings, our holy blessings, whether it is the blessing over the wine that we say on festivals or Shabbat, we're always mentioning the Yitziat Mitzrayim, the going out of Egypt, the going out of the narrow place. And in fact, even when we say the Shema, which is meant to be said 2 times a day, once in the morning and the evening, the Shema is not just the one line of the Shema, as some of us are aware. It's also 3 other paragraphs that go along with it. The Ve'ahavta, another paragraph called Vahaya, and then the paragraph about Tzitzit, which has at the end of it a few lines about going out of Egypt again. And even in Reform practice, where there is only the reading of the first line and the Ve'ahavta, the Reform movement also took those lines at the end of the paragraph about Tzitzit and put them out and put them right there to be said at the Shema. L'ma'an tizkaru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai, right? And that whole piece right there, because it's core in the Talmud, and of course the rabbis in the Reform movement knew this, that one needs to be constantly mentioning the going out of Egypt all the time, twice a day, because it is a reminder to us that our current way that we see our lives and reality is limited, is constricted. And we always need to be engaged in a process of Yitziat Mitzrayim, which is transcending, opening beyond our own constricted perspective to something deeper, to something more alive, to something more present, to God. And as soon as we begin to say in any given moment of our lives, this is what it is, there's nothing more, we're bound, we're in slavery. We believe that our own picture of reality is all there is. Rabbi Hanoch of Alexander said, the greatest part of the slavery in Egypt was that the Israelites learned to endure it. They learned to endure it. They took it as their normal reality. Pharaoh's the king, Pharaoh's the god, Pharaoh's in charge of everything. We can't take one move and step out of line without anything happening. There's no greater power. My world is like this. And they endured it. They took it as reality. And so the question for each of us this morning, as we move forward in a new secular new year, the 2024, is to really begin to reflect and ask, in what ways do I endure? In what ways do I take my current reality as all there is? In what ways do I invest my whole being and identification with the way that I see reality today. And just right there to even hold that is the beginning to start to think about, to start to open to what more could be possible, right? What more could be possible. All right, so we'll hold there and take this more into an internal practice through our meditation. Find a comfortable space to sit for a period of time with that you can sit without moving, hopefully. It's okay if you move, but really good to not be so concerned with physical um, positions. And we'll begin with a melody, a nigun, and then we'll take that into our silent practice. As we sing our melody, really invite you in, in the comfort of your own home, in your own space, to just sing along. There is something that happens in the heart and in the mind with these sacred melodies that are really designed for an opening of da'at, of awareness. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. Ya ra 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 ya ya. Ai ra 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 ya. Ai ai ra ra ai ra ra. Ai ra ai ra 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 ra. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Ai 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 ai. Ai 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 ai. Ai 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 ai. Ai 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 ai. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Ai 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 ai. Ai 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 ai. Ai 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 ai. Ai 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 ai. Let yourself settle into your seat, to this moment, feeling the pressure of your bottom on the seat, chair, noticing the contact between the bottom of your feet and the floor. Notice the distance between the bottom of your spine and the top of your head, the way your arms hang out of your shoulder sockets and the resting place of your hands. The shape of your head as it rests on your shoulders, the place where the air touches your face, your skin. And begin to notice the movement of breath, paying attention to where the air enters the nostrils or the mouth. Notice the expansion of the chest or the belly, the body, with the inhale. And then notice that place where the inhale reaches its maximum length, switches over to an exhale, and follow the process of breath as it leaves the body, noticing the contraction of belly, chest. And really making a decision to fully embody this moment, the experience of breathing, keeping our attention focused on that movement of inhale and exhale, noticing the body in space as we breathe. Being present with any sounds or activity that's happening in your space or beyond your space. Just really choosing to embrace this moment of life without reservation. Part of the experience of slavery is not having choice. Let yourself choose, be very conscious of your choosing to be here in this moment, noticing breath, noticing body. And then as you keep your awareness on the full cycle of breath, pay particular attention to that moment where the inhale reaches its maximum length. There's the briefest pause before the breath then turns into the exhale. And then notice also that briefest pause when the exhale finishes right before it moves back into an inhale. Just really notice the stillness that's present right in between that exhale and inhale and that inhale and exhale. And as you notice that moment of stillness before the breath moves again, see if you can notice its quality, its silence, its expansiveness. That in that moment in between the breath, there's no limitation. It's a moment of all possibility. See if in that moment of stillness between the breath, your attention can expand infinitely in all directions. No thought to hold on to. Nothing holding us in any position. A brief moment of freedom. And consider that that moment of expansiveness, of stillness, of silence is present all the time, even while the inhale and the exhale is going on. That the inhale and exhale kind of ride on top of that ever present stillness, silence, expansiveness. And it's only in the in between moments where there's the pause for us to notice what's always present. So now to practice, as we pay attention to the movement of breath and we pay attention to that still, expansive, silent moment in between the breaths, to hold on to the awareness of that expansive stillness, even as we're inhaling or exhaling. That expansiveness, that stillness, that silence is the ever-present ground of every moment. And all the activity just rides on top of it. I'm going to be quiet for the rest of our time. And again, invite you to stay present with that ground, that ever-present ground of stillness. You can tap into it in the in-between periods of the breath. See if you can hold on to it with your attention, even as the inhale or exhale is unfolding. And if there's other things that draw your attention, whether those are sensations in the body or thoughts or concepts in the mind, as soon as you become aware that that's where you are, just open up to the ground that's beneath it, the ever-present ground, the ever-present space. And if you need to root back your attention with the breath, that can always ground us here in the present moment. I'll invite any questions, comments, thoughts about the practice, the teaching, or anything that's on your mind and heart this morning regarding meditation or spiritual practice. He asked, how was inhabiting that space of expansiveness, of awareness, kind of noticing it in between? It's just a technique to use the moment in between the breath to open up to that ground of presence and awareness that's with us every moment. Yeah, Ellen,
I yeah, I've been trying with meditation many years, and I actually got there with that technique. I couldn't hold it very long, which is very hard, but I did. It worked for me, and I was really surprised. It's just those invasive thoughts that keep coming into your head. But there were moments. And then I found exactly that I wasn't, that space opened up even when I was breathing in and out without the stopping. So there was just a tinge of being there. It's hard.
beautiful. Yes, and I mean, really, what we're speaking about is awareness is present with us. We are always aware, whether we're conscious of it or not. There is, from when we came out of the womb all the way till this moment, there is one who is experiencing everything. We call that one ourselves, but whether it's, and it even happens in sleep, whether it is in, there is one that is experiencing the dream world, or whether we're conscious of the one who is watching, who is present with all of this experience or not, it is still with us all the time. And this particular practice was more um, about being able to choose to be with awareness itself. And it is true that the nature of the mind is that there's a lot of activity, there's a lot that's going on, and in other practices that we do here this morning, and there's also a welcoming of all the activity that unfolds in our moment to moment, whether it's where nothing is a distraction. There are no invasive thoughts. There is just life and creation and thoughts that are opening. And how can we continue to be present and to the depth that that it may be coming from, those thoughts are coming from. So, but here, yes, we're just allowing ourselves to try to notice awareness itself as a ground of being for our practice.
Mhm.
Eileen, and then Audrey. Eileen, you have to you have to unmute. There you go.
It's one of the few times when you started singing that I didn't want to leave. Usually I'm ready. It's enough already. And I that whatever you did with us, I was deeper than I've been before. Thank you.
You, Audrey.
Am I unmuted? Let's see.
Oh,
Oh, I'm unmuted. First of all, thank you. Happy New Year, everyone. I mean, I think the music, I love when you do the Nagun, but I don't know, right away I'm thinking about all these things I should be doing. And it took me a while, and then I get quiet, and then the thoughts come. But what helps me the most, and maybe you have other tips, is I focus right in the middle eye here. For some reason, it quiets my thoughts.
yeah.
I don't know. That's just what helps me. But maybe there's other techniques. And your reminders that that's what our brain does. That really helps me. You know, to not worry about it. That I do that. So I appreciate that.
Audrey, yeah, is actually something too, kind of awareness of this, what gets called third eye, in many different systems. In Kabbalah, it is really almost like a physical location for da'at, for awareness. And in the chakra system, we also know it's one of those, closer to the sixth chakra, the seventh chakra, kind of more of that higher. And for a while, I didn't. For many years of meditating spiritual practice, I thought about chakras or sphirot as these kind of physical centers, as more metaphors for different states of awareness. I didn't actually consider that there was something actually physical, like that it could actually, these centers of awareness and consciousness are actually can be located in different places in our body. And I have found that is true, that if you're wanting to if you're feeling tired or you're wanting to inspire awareness or concentration, try just kind of directing your breath in and out instead of your mouth, in and out through that area in this place right here. And it does seem to bring awareness and concentration. The other thing I'll just share, as far as dealing with the busy mind, is really clarifying our intention when we sit down to meditate. And this is really you can apply this to any part of life. Anything that you're going to do, you want to do fully, right? You want to be clear. This is where I want to be. This is what I want to do, and be clear about what your motivations are for it. Because the truth is that the reason that our attention goes to other places is because there's some part of us unconsciously that is choosing to go there, right? So Audrey, when you're talking about, thinking about things that you have to do, or, all of those things that are going on, you are choosing to go there, even though it doesn't feel like it in the moment. It feels like, oh, I'm trying to be here and my mind's going over here. But I think, if we pay attention more, there might be an anxiety around either getting things done or what's going to happen. And so we're we're continuing to run those things over in our mind as a way to try to deal with that, but to consider the possibility that every place that your mind goes, you're choosing on some level, is again an important place to not feel enslaved to your mind, and instead know that that freedom comes in fully embodying your choice of where your attention is. Ellen Prince.
Yes, now it's the full name with two Ellens. So I've always called meditation a practice. You know, you can't perfect it, but when you're talking about da'at and expanding and opening, I've tried a new method by not calling it a practice. That it's an experience, and I'm not judging what happens in my mind or where it goes, or I'm just going to just this is my newest, to try and really hold on to that meditative moment sort of thing. Just let it happen, just let it go, and hopefully I will become more expansive in what I can experience, what I can understand more. So that's probably is kind of the da'at idea of just expanding out and not being in my mind. Whatever happens, my mind will move. It will go into other places, and it's okay. It's okay. It's just, I mean, yes, I do ground myself back into my breath. That's a good grounding for me. But so anyway, just thought I'd share that.
Yeah, so for you, when you're saying, Ellen, the kind of shifting from thinking about it as practice to experience, is what you're saying that that within the way that you've thought about it as practice, that there's a certain kind of striving that's present, whereas and now by shifting it to experience, there's no more striving. There's just opening to what is, to what the experience is, and beautiful.
Yeah.
And I think the piece to just again, this is all words and how we use words and what they carry for us, but I think that's a really important piece to identify, that maybe and each one of us can think about it and how we each use these words. What does practice mean for you? Does it have an element of striving to it, in this sense? Because I would also say that you making a choice to intentionally just be open and experience is also practice, right? You're practicing,
Right.
you're practicing being open to experience without an agenda so much, other than let's see what's here, what's open here. Because you have to then ask the question, well, what's the difference between this kind of experience and just the rest of life? Which, we could say, well, I want to be open to experience, and not just in meditation, but when I'm with my friends or when I'm with, other things, and kind of be open to that. And maybe the piece that we're talking here is a certain kind of intentionality that is what helps define it as practice. And can we have intention without the striving?
Well, and the intention is also without judgment for me.
Yes.
And that, I mean, yes, I mean, as I always go back to, Ruth and I have gone through all of this together this last year, but with the Amalek and really not judging. And I always go back to water. That seems to be my real good grounding for me. And just let it flow. Just let it flow like water. I know I talked about the river last time, but that's what works for me. And I will try to really experience with my practice this weekend as we really get more intense and deeper.
Beautiful. The thing I want to comment about, just what I appreciate about how you're talking about what you're talking about, Ellen, is that you're talking about it as far as what works for you, And I think there's an overall piece of this, which is that all of us come to this practice, come to this experience with very different worlds and backgrounds and experiences. And for some of us, when we look at, okay, well, what is it that keeps us in Mitzrayim? You know, what is it that keeps us kind of, you know, it might be the judgment, right? It might be the striving, it might be, but what's going to keep you in Mitzrayim, in narrow place, in the practice, is going to be different than what keeps me in Mitzrayim. And so there, you know, if we're coming to all of this to say that there is a right way to do it, we're going to find ourselves constantly frustrated because we're bringing such different experiences. And so part of it is being aware of, okay, how do I hold the practice? How do I get what the essence of the practice is and then hold it in a way that's unique for me? And that's part of, I think, what's important about having a teacher. You know, this is where you can only get so much between books or videos or any of those things that are there without being able to then come and say, this is what I wrestle with, and how can I hold this in a way that's appropriate for me. Last comment, Dennis. And yeah, unmute there.
I don't think we're going to actually be able to address this in the time we have. Oftentimes when you talk about the mystics, you talk about their understanding or appreciation of the Torah is metaphoric. You did it this morning, for example.
Right.
The narrow place is a metaphor for getting stuck in your mind. How do the mystics know they're not just making it up?
Oh, well, so are you saying that, meaning that it is, do they come to it with the awareness of what the Torah really means metaphorically is this, whatever this is, and now I'm just revealing it for everybody to see because I've discovered the deeper meaning? Or am I aware that I'm engaged in a creative act that is drawing out one meaning and interpretation and looking at it a metaphor for this, but I'm also aware that it could mean this, or it could mean that, or it could, like that I'm engaged in, I'm making it up.
Or even different is, was it written that way?
Was what written that way?
Was the Torah written that way?
You mean with that meaning, that particular meaning?
We've mentioned this before, well, I guess the easiest way to say is the Torah metaphorical approach to spirituality.
Yes, and I think what you're saying, and this is a really core concept in Judaism in general, is the idea of approaching sacred scripture through midrash, right? I think one of the things that is unique about Jewish approach to sacred scripture is one that says there is an infinite number of interpretations that could be valid. And the way that the text they talk about it is that the Torah has 70 faces, or God's word is splintered, you know, as a hammer splinters rock. God's word gets splintered into 70 different pieces or sparks. And, you know, my understanding and learning is that 70 is not meant to be taken literally, right? The 70,
That's a metaphor.
right, it's a metaphor, right? The 70 isn't that there's only 70 ways to interpret this one word or this one verse in Torah that we're saying, but 70 is kind of a way for its own significance around the number 70, but it's a way to say there are infinite ways to interpret this. So the mystics and the Talmud and all of like rabbinic texts, the whole idea of midrash is to say, I can say that the Torah means this, and if people respond to it, if people find truth in it, then that particular teaching gets taught over and over again and gets passed down and gets written down and it stays, right? And if I come up with an interpretation about a line that doesn't inspire, then it just kind of falls away and it doesn't get passed on and it doesn't get carried on. So, but when the rabbis come up with an interpretation, they're aware that they're just giving one interpretation among many. And so the question of is it a true metaphor, or is it a metaphor that brings freedom? Is it a metaphor that awakens awareness? That's the question that each one of us can ask for ourselves, of whether it inspires us or not.
Well, Rabbi, I was always taught if you have 10 rabbis, you have 11 opinions.
Same idea, exactly, right? Exactly, same idea, is that not only is there enough opinions for each rabbi, but there's even ones we haven't even considered yet, right? So, all right, everybody, well,
Anyway,
beautiful to be with you
thank
this
you.
morning. I want to, if you're not joining us for the retreat this year, I want to invite you to take some time, specifically on either Friday night or Saturday morning or sometime on Shabbat, to sit and meditate and think about that you are with this chevra and in this group, wherever you may be, and that you have strength and support in taking this journey, that we're not taking this journey alone. I think there is a lot of meaning to the fact that the Exodus story is not just about one individual, but about a whole people that go out of Egypt, that go out of the narrow place, that receive Torah on Sinai. And so that this journey that each one of us has to becoming more aware is not something we take alone, but something that we are taking together. So take care, everybody.
Thank you.